Hey, Slater Crusaders. We haven't had a chance to talk about the wildfires in Australia yet. We've had a lot going on, but I want to take a minute and talk about that. So first, let's start off here with a nice video. Sit back and enjoy this. These are American firefighters arriving at the Sydney airport the other day. So first thing, we keep hearing all about the animals, right? We're supposed to be very concerned about the animals. Even though kangaroos, like we look at kangaroos and we think, oh, they must be so beloved there. Kangaroos in Australia they're like giant rats. People in Australia hate kangaroos. I don't think they care about kangaroos at all. They might be happy the kangaroos are dying. It's an afterthought. Like if there were wildfires somewhere, like here in California, which we'll get to, no one's like, oh, the rats. We got to protect the rats. Someone save the rats, all the rats. And that's how they feel in Australia. We're all like, oh, the kangaroos. And like, who cares about the kangaroos? We don't even like kangaroos. This is Gina Didi. She is an actual, genuine environmentalist and animal rights supporter. And she was writing about how you can help animals over there. And if you want to help animals over there, don't give to PETA. Their Australian chapter received $49 million of contributions last year. How much of that do you think went to help animals? Like specific animals who were in need. What percentage of that? $49 million, what percentage? Less than 1%. Less than 1%. You give money to PETA, less than 1% goes to help animals. The rest of the money, she says in true PETA fashion, was used on advertising, public disturbances, paying off celebrity spokespersons, lobbying politicians and businesses into getting what they want, and they want one thing, and that is total animal liberation. No more zoos, no aquariums, no dairy consumption, no meat, no pets, no wildlife conservation efforts, no use of animals for therapeutic purposes. PETA is also against the use of guide dogs for those who are blind. So 1% of your PETA donation goes to helping animals, and the rest goes to try and shut down SeaWorld, who, by the way, rescues tens of thousands of animals every single year. That's the first point. I actually know one of my favorite PETA stories. This is awful. This was in 2002 or 3 or something like that. The head of PETA, her name was Ingrid Newkirk. She might still be, I don't know. But she wrote a letter to Yasser Arafat, who's the leader of Palestine. And in this letter, so she wrote it because Palestine used a donkey covered with explosives, right? So donkey and just piled with explosives. And they pushed the donkey off to go and kill a bunch of Jews in Israel. So she wrote to Yasser Arafat and said, will you please add to your burdens my request that you please leave animals out of this conflict. So someone wrote back, hey, did you take a moment in your letter to ask Arafat if he could stop blowing up, I don't know, humans? And she said, well, it's not my business to inject myself into human wars. So there's PETA for you. Please donate otherwise. But here's the main point. It turns out these wildfires in Australia, it's the same thing as the wildfires that have happened here in California for the last couple of years. This is BBC. Long before Australia was invaded by colonized by Europeans, fire management techniques known as cultural burns were being practiced. And the article goes on and it quotes this person who's an Aboriginal expert. They call her the knowledge keeper of the Aboriginal people. And she said, cool burning replenishes the earth and enhances biodiversity. The ash fertilizes and the potassium encourages flowering. It's a complex cycle based on cultural, spiritual, and scientific knowledge. But the local authorities, here's the key line, the local authorities, the government, have forbidden them from cultural burning when they've asked for permission. They've forbidden cultural burnings. This is Nassim Taleb. Nassim Taleb is a statistician, risk analyst, overall genius. He was asked, this is an economic question that he was asked. He said, isn't there a threshold where too much volatility becomes dangerous? Again, too much volatility in the economy. And he said, no, it's the exact opposite. Take forest fires. If you leave a forest alone, it will have its own fires. They will come and they'll die down, come and die down, and they'll be pretty much harmless. If you repress every forest fire, the first major fire that you cannot control will destroy the whole forest. It's the same thing with states and how they solve their problems. And he goes on, he says, if you have a little bit of volatility and tension, the system will cope. But if you try and stop it at all times, then one large problem will turn into a giant, massive problem. This is Barnaby Joyce. He's our equivalent of a congressman in Australia. He was also the deputy prime minister and minister of agriculture. And so he gets this stuff, right? This is his expertise. And here's what he says is the biggest cause of these fires.
I don't have a problem with people who vote Greens, and I certainly don't want to go sort of argumentum ad hominem against Green voters, because it's nothing to do with that. What it is certain, let's call them conservation policies or green policies, that I think have exacerbated this fire. And I'll name three. One is the lack of controlled burns, fire reduction burns, because as you know, if you keep on piling vegetation, dry vegetation on top of dry vegetation, which was never burnt as the Aboriginals did when they were here. They were very aware of the dangers this caused. Then when a fire does come, and they always do come, they are horrific. They are like a Holocaust. And that policy needs to be changed so we can get those controlled burns. Now, speaking to people from the Environment Department, and they say, well, they won't go on the record, but they say it's just so bureaucratic. It's bureaucratic for the purpose of not letting you do it.
Yeah. So another major aspect of bureaucracy in all this is that the bureaucrats and our leaders, they set these policies, but these people don't live near, let alone in this case, the forests that their policies are affecting. Same thing with California. California is governed by San Francisco and LA, people who have no connection with actual nature. They romanticize nature. And then they pass on policies that hurt nature and people.